tip about doing ditch work. You might have one or two stitches that just get up on top of the edge and you just don't like the way that looks. You can get Argyval Safe Pigma pins, and you can dab one or two stitches with that pin, and they come in different colors. You can make that blend into the fabric. That's just if you don't want to unsew. One or two stitches is no big deal. If it's more than that, you probably do want to stop and take it out. I'm back at the main menu, and I'm going to say Design Sew Quilt. I am starting new. You already have a work in progress. Do you want to replace it? Yes, I do. And I know that quilt, I know the situation, so I'm comfortable just choosing to erase it. And I usually don't care about the project time, but I will reset it today. Now, it asked me what pattern type or block I want to add, and I would like to add line pattern. Now, when you move the machine, line pattern is created. That's why you can't do it unless you're on the machine. It says move the needle along the path and touch OK to sample points. The height is a default of 2 inches, but if I'm doing a straight line, then that's not going to be affected. So I'm going to touch OK, and as I move, you can see that a continuous curve is starting. That's because that's the last project I did, and I don't need that anymore, so I'm going to say remove, 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 remove. Now I have the straight line, which is the default if you don't have any of your previous patterns saved. Now I'm going to back up because now I'm going to be really particular. I'm going to turn on my laser light, and I did check it earlier, and if you'd like to know how to check how accurate your laser light is, you can do this with blue tape, but I had a sticker here. I put a little pin mark, an ink pen, and I put it down, got the laser light shining right on the dot, and I put the needle down. And if the needle hit that dot exactly, I knew that my laser light was in the correct position. So just remember that, and once in a while you want to check, because just the vibration of the machine, you might have accidentally bumped it. You could get off of accuracy with the laser light, and since you're using that to tell Intelliquilter where you're going to stitch in a minute, you want to make sure that the laser light's working properly for you. Notice on the side of my machine I have a bracket that we moved the laser to the front of the machine so that we could use that as I described earlier. So the laser bracket is something that you can get from Sheridan Quilting. We have a welder here in Hendersonville that manufactures those for us. So let me go back, line pattern, and touch OK. Now as I move, I am drawing a line. There you can see. Now if the line detoured out that way, that would be great, but it doesn't. It goes straight up. So I'm going to put in as many registration points as I need. So that I am drawing an accurate representation of this block, because it does, I could pretend it's straight and just draw a straight line, and then it's time to stitch it out and it's not straight. That's not really going to be very helpful. So I'm going to draw what really exists. So I'm comfortable that this block is pretty stable, and that when I mark this line and then tell Intelliquilter to stitch it, I'm going to be happy with the results. I am going to turn my speed and my detail down on my Intelliquilter, and I'm going to turn my motor speed down a little because I want to be able to manipulate the fabric as Intelliquilter is stitching. So I'm going to touch finished. Do you want to start another line pattern? No. Now I'm ready to sew quilt, and it's asking me what I want to sew. I want to sew this straight line. It starts at the bottom and ended at the top. Well, actually, I have an option to swap the start and end points, and I'm going to do that because it's easier for me to see as it's coming towards me than it is to see it traveling away. So I'm going to say I have selected the first pattern, and now I'm going to continue, and I'm going to say sew quilt. It takes a single stitch. I'm going to bring up my bobbin, swipe under the hopping foot, bring up my bobbin, put it over to the side, and I do have the freedom right now to do a couple locking stitches. Now I'm going to back it up and I'm going to turn off my stitch regulator. And it says, please set the regulated stitch length or constant speed on the quilting machine. So that reminded me to turn off the blue light. So I'm going to touch continue. Now I'm going to adjust this down, the speed and the details. I like them about 7. And I'm going to change my motor speed 10. And you know, if it starts and I don't like it, all I have to do is touch pause. So I'm going to hold these 2 threads off to the side. I think that's going to look nice. And I'll move it over just a little. Okay, so I'm ready to sew. I'm holding on to the 2 threads. And I'm going to stitch right along that line that I marked. And as it's traveling towards me, I'm nudging the fabric, keeping it nice and straight, so that as Intelliquilter is stitching that straight line towards me, I'm nudging the fabric, and that's just a beautiful stitch in the ditch. Beautiful. So don't be afraid of doing stitch in the ditch with Intelliquilter. Sometimes I like to do it as I did earlier with the using the channel locks, but stitch in the ditch really, really makes a block stand out. Makes it beautiful and special. I really encourage you to get a presentation clicker. This is a Targus, and this has a little receiver that goes up into your tablet, and it talks to Intelliquilter through that thumb drive. I'm going to choose to do a line pattern, and it says move the needle along the path and touch OK to sample points. Well, notice on the screen there is a little antenna icon. That is telling me that I can use my presentation clicker instead of reaching up and touching the OK button. So this is how it looks. I've got the laser light shining down in the ditch, and as I move along, I'm creating this line. So I'm traveling along using the laser light to mark where I'm going to stitch. And if I stop to look up at the screen once in a while, that's exactly what I want to stitch. So this is looking good. It is drawing exactly what I am telling it by the registration marks that I'm making. We marked the ditch, and it's time to tell Intelliquilter to quilt that. Now it is time to tell it to sew quilt. Sew quilt. Select the first pattern to quilt. The diagonals that we went around this inside of this block. Continue. Select the next pattern. There isn't anything else, so we touch sew quilt. Needle down, needle up, bring up my bobbin, and that's a good time for me to check and make sure that everything's feeling good with my top thread and my bobbin thread. Using clear thread, so that means I need my upper tension a little bit looser than normal. I have 2 hands free because Intelliquilter is doing this for me, so I can just nudge the fabric as it needs to be nudged, and I'm coming down that ditch. Because I have my laser light and I was pretty accurate with how I was marking this ditch, it is just beautiful. Ah, loving this. Looking great. That's it.